When a young woman starts having scary visions, even when she's awake, she turns to her parents for help, thinking it might be something spiritual. They ask a priest to help get rid of the demons they believe are causing her problems. But despite their efforts, the exorcisms don't work. This situation leads to one of the most interesting and controversial cases of the 20th century, and maybe even beyond. Today, we'll talk about the life and death of a young woman named Anneliese and the 6 demons people thought had taken over her. This is the untold story of Anneliese Michel's exorcism, and it's quite frightening. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to encourage me to bring more stories. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started. Before delving into this dark and intricate story, I want to clarify a few things. Whether this tale involves true demonic possession or stems from religious extremism leading to malpractice is not for me to determine. I'll simply lay out the events chronologically and with as much detail as possible, leaving the conclusion to you. So, let's begin at the start. Joseph Michel, a war veteran who had experienced the horrors of combat, returned to his family's small village after being released from American imprisonment in late 1945. Grateful that his village, with about 3,000 inhabitants, had been spared from foreign occupation and the devastating air raids that had destroyed many German cities, Joseph rejoined his family and took up a job in their business. It was during this time that he met Anna, a local girl, and within 2 years, they were married. Anna Elisabeth Michel was born on September 21, 1952, in Leipzig, Bavaria, West Germany. Anna grew up as a shy and often sickly child, alongside her 3 sisters in a very religious household. They attended Mass together twice a week. Despite her frequent illnesses, Anna was known for her sweetness, though she tended to keep to herself and focus on her studies at school. Things were going smoothly for Anna, who was often called Anneliese, a blend of her first and middle names until she turned 16. Shortly after her birthday, Anna experienced a fainting spell in front of her younger sister. When she regained consciousness, she attributed it to exhaustion from studying too much and decided to rest for the night. However, that night marked the beginning of her torment. As Anna slept, she suddenly woke in a panic after midnight. She felt a powerful force holding her down, as if a large person or creature was sitting on her. This entity pressed on her stomach, causing her distress. Anna found herself unable to move as the mysterious force pressed down on her, causing her to lose control and urinate. Terrified and struggling to breathe, she called out to God desperately, pleading to be released from whatever was tormenting her. Just when she felt she couldn't bear it any longer, the nearby church clock struck the quarter hour, and the pressure vanished as if swept away by the wind. After changing her bedding, Anna struggled to sleep that night. She felt unwell and exhausted, understandably so. The next morning, she told her mother about the frightening experience and was allowed to stay home from school. Nearly a year later, on August 24, 1969, the ordeal repeated itself. Anna blacked out during the day, only to find herself trapped again by the same menacing force in the dead of night. Once more, she was freed when the church clock tower chimed midnight. Concerned for her daughter's well-being, Anna's mother took her to see the family physician, unsure of what could be afflicting her poor daughter. Upon the recommendation of Dr. Vogt, Anna and her family traveled to Afschenberg to see a neurologist named Dr. Siegfried Luthi. Dr. Luthi conducted a series of tests, all of which came back negative. Uncertain of the results, he scheduled a follow-up appointment for August 27th for further tests, including an EEG, which showed normal brain activity. Despite the normal test results, Anna continued to experience convulsive episodes. Dr. Luthi diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy and prescribed Zentropil, an anticonvulsant medication. While this medication initially helped, Anna's health deteriorated as 1969 progressed. In December, she developed pneumonia, complicated by a tuberculosis infection, forcing her to drop out of school and remain bedridden at home. By January 1970, her condition hadn't improved, leading to her admission to the hospital. In February, Anna was transferred to a sanatorium in Middelburg, specializing in bronchial and lung diseases. While she showed some improvement there, she also received additional diagnoses. As spring arrived, she yearned to return home and see the lush hills of her village instead of the bleak gray mountains that surrounded the sanatorium. However, her hopes were dashed, as she was deemed unfit to leave due to ongoing health issues, including newly diagnosed cardiovascular problems. Despite her disappointment, Anna understood the situation. Yet, the relentless force that had tormented her returned once again on June 3, 1970, the same overwhelming and paralyzing entity. Anna felt an icy grip tightening around her, as if unseen hands were squeezing her tightly. This time, she fought back with all her might, letting out a piercing scream that caught the attention of the night nurse and the young doctor on duty. Rushing to her aid, they entered her room just as the specter released its hold on Anna. The commotion woke up the other girls in the sanatorium wing, and they helped Anna change her pajamas and bedding before she attempted to sleep again, under the nurse's watchful eye. The next morning, gossip among the girls reached a fever pitch as they speculated about Anna's condition. Anna, however, was too preoccupied with her health to pay much attention. Feeling withdrawn and weak from the previous night's ordeal, Anna chose to stay in her room while the other girls went to the cafeteria. Instead, she stared out of her window and said her evening prayers. As she prayed, the voices of the returning girls seemed louder than ever before. As Anna gazed out of her window, something felt different. The once imposing mountains now looked stunning, bathed in pink and violet hues under the sunlight. As she admired the view and said her prayers, a girl approached her and expressed concern, noting that Anna's blue eyes appeared black. Anna brushed off the comment and continued her prayers. The next day, Anna was taken to another specialist to determine what was happening to her. Despite undergoing various tests, including EEGs, no abnormalities were found. However, due to her history of epileptic seizures, Dr. Keller recommended a new anticonvulsive medication. Upon returning to the sanatorium, Anna began experiencing a new and terrifying phenomenon. She started seeing horrifying demonic creatures lurking in the shadows, both in her waking life and in her dreams. These creatures appeared in the mountains, in the corridors, and even in her room, causing Anna to often collapse in fear at the sight of their twisted faces. Anna would kneel and pray fervently to the Virgin Mary, pleading for relief from the terrifying visions. After 6 more weeks at the sanatorium, she underwent another round of tests, yet again showing no abnormalities in her brain scans. With this result, she was finally allowed to return home to her family. Initially, Anna's return home brought happiness as she reunited with loved ones and slept in her bed. However, she soon began worrying about returning to school and dealing with ongoing health issues. Despite her concerns, she resumed her studies, closely monitored by multiple doctors throughout the year. Although Anna experienced several more seizures, they were less severe than before. However, she continued to suffer from horrifying visions of disfigured creatures. She confided in her mother about these experiences, suspecting that something supernatural was at play. One evening, Anna's parents discussed the matter, with Anna trying to convince her husband that their daughter was indeed facing something beyond the ordinary. Anna's mother expressed her deep concern to her husband, Joseph, convinced that their daughter's visions were of demonic origin. She described how Anna saw twisted and horrifying faces constantly, whether it was in mirrors, through windows, or even in the faces of other people. One particular vision that shook Anna's mother to her core was when Anna described seeing the Virgin Mary statue on their mantle. Anna claimed that the statue's eyes turned black, a sinister grin spread across its face, and its hands transformed into grotesque claws. Moved by his wife's sincerity, Joseph remained silent for a few moments before suggesting that the family seek guidance through prayer. With Anna's schooling completed before university, Joseph decided that a summer trip was in order. Concerned about Anna's mental well-being, especially after learning about her depressive thoughts, Joseph arranged a trip to the shrine of San Damiano in Italy. He hoped that the spiritual atmosphere of the shrine, known for miraculous events and messages from the Virgin Mary, would provide solace for Anna. Rosa Quattrini, also known as Mama Rosa, played a significant role in the construction of the shrine. Working alongside Padre Pio for many years, she devoted herself to the cause. With the help of a teacher, Joseph organized a trip to the shrine, and they embarked on a bus journey through the picturesque Italian countryside. As they arrived at the shrine, nestled amidst beautiful vineyards, a dark presence seemed to overshadow the surroundings. The shrine was surrounded by an open space where pilgrims could kneel and pray. Despite her father's encouragement, Anna hesitated to approach the shrine. Instead, she walked around it in a wide arc, feeling as though her feet were burning as she moved. She noticed that the other pilgrims, though praying, appeared distorted and unsettling. Anna's aversion to holy objects became apparent as she reacted negatively to medals, statues, and symbols representing Jesus Christ. Her unusual behavior caught the attention of those present, and questions arose as they boarded the bus to leave. The teacher approached Anna, seeking an explanation for her unsettling demeanor. Michel approached Frau Hein, expressing her concerns about what was happening to her. She confided that she felt like she was being controlled by someone else, and almost immediately, her demeanor changed drastically. In a voice that sounded masculine, Anna began mocking Frau Hein and snatched a blessed medal from her neck. At the same time, Frau Hein, Joseph, and others on the trip noticed a foul odor emanating from Anna, unlike anything they had ever smelled before. It smelled of feces and burning, filling the entire bus. Eventually, Anna calmed down, and they returned to Germany. Despite initially seeming fine, Anna's condition deteriorated after about 2 weeks. She was scheduled to start college soon, but felt too unwell to do so. She complained to her mother about feeling deeply depressed and constantly haunted by horrifying faces. Believing it was related to Anna's seizures, her mother made an appointment with Dr. Luthi. Anna reluctantly attended her appointment with Dr. Luthi, where it was determined that she had been free of seizures between their visits. Another EEG confirmed that her brain appeared normal. However, Dr. Luthi, who was not religious, dismissed Anna's reports of seeing horrifying visions daily. He attributed her experiences to superstition, believing her to be an overly religious Catholic girl. Despite this, he cleared Anna to attend university. This marked the last time Anna saw Dr. Luthi and the last time she mentioned her visions to any medical professional. Growing increasingly depressed and withdrawn, Anna's mother finally confronted her. She reminded Anna of her lifelong dream of becoming a teacher and expressed disappointment that Anna was not pursuing it. Anna confessed that she felt empty, tired, and depressed. Realizing that medication wasn't alleviating her daughter's suffering and that the demonic manifestations were worsening, Anna believed Anneliese's issues might have a spiritual origin. She arranged for her daughter to meet with priests in hopes of finding relief. Father Herman and Father Alt received letters from both Anna and Anneliese detailing the disturbing experiences. Father Alt, in particular, became increasingly intrigued by Anneliese's accounts. However, after reading the letters, he suddenly fell ill without warning. Retreating to his dormitory room for the night, Father Alt was startled awake by a storm outside, accompanied by lightning illuminating the room. Feeling unwell, he began to pray, only to sense a presence pressing down on his bed as if someone had entered the room. Terrified, Father Alt leaped off the bed and started praying aloud. A foul, burning smell permeated the room as he rushed into the hallway, feeling his vision narrowing and his perception of colors fading. As Father Alt rushed down the stairs and toward the exit door of the building, he felt a profound change come over him. Within the shadows cast on the walls and the stained glass surrounding him, horrifying and distorted faces began to materialize. Father Alt realized that he was confronting real evil forces. He dashed outside into the rain, falling to his knees and clutching his rosary as he tried to regain his composure. After feeling that the malevolent presence had passed, he returned to his room. However, the smell of burning feces lingered throughout the parish, persisting even into the following day and affecting all the priests and staff. This unsettling event heightened the interest in Anneliese's case among the priests and spurred them to take action promptly. Concerned that Anneliese might be under demonic influence, Father Alt began meeting with her around her school schedule. Despite still experiencing manifestations, Anneliese seemed to be managing fairly well. She started attending classes on November 1st, 1973, diligently going to lectures and finding solace in churches and chapels through prayer. Towards the end of November, Anneliese met a fellow student named Peter. Like her, he was shy yet friendly, with a more outgoing side once you got to know him. The two grew close, attending many classes together and eventually falling in love. However, several weeks into their relationship, Anneliese abruptly told Peter to stop seeing her, fearing that the demons would return and he wouldn't want her anymore. Despite her warnings, Peter refused to leave her side. Soon after, Anneliese went for a checkup evaluation and another EEG was conducted, this time by Dr. Schleipe. During the test, Dr. Schleipe detected patterns consistent with epilepsy. This discovery was significant as it marked the first time patterns of epilepsy had been identified during Anneliese's evaluations. In response, Dr. Schleipe changed Anneliese's medication to a different anticonvulsant called Dilantin, hoping for an improvement in her condition. After this appointment, Anneliese continued her relationship with Peter, confiding in him more about her experiences with the demonic figures and the persistent foul odor that accompanied them. As their relationship deepened, Peter wanted Anneliese to meet his family and friends, but she hesitated, fearing they wouldn't understand her struggles. Despite moments of clarity, Anneliese still suffered from the haunting visions and foul smells, despite faithfully taking her medication. The situation remained unchanged, despite Father Alt's regular check-ins with Anneliese, as discussed with the local bishop on campus. Recognizing her ongoing struggles, Father Alt arranged to meet Anneliese in a nearby town for prayer, hoping to provide her with spiritual support. Peter accompanied Anneliese to the appointment with Father Alt, and was surprised to see how quickly she seemed relieved once they began praying together. Despite his initial skepticism, Peter started to consider that Anneliese's struggles might have a spiritual root. Now, I want to pause here and acknowledge that there's a lot of information about Anneliese's life, and I've covered much of it in detail. However, to keep things concise, I'll summarize the events leading up to the paranormal manifestations that worsened her condition. Otherwise, we'd be here all day going through every detail. After the meeting with Father Alt, Anneliese's depression resurfaced. She confided in Peter about feeling sickened by the clanking of knives and forks, claiming that the demons wouldn't let her eat. With her weight loss and increasing social withdrawal, more people began to notice her strange behavior. One particular incident, witnessed by a mutual friend named Anna Leiper, left a lasting impression. In July 1975, while chatting casually in Anneliese's dorm room with Anna and Peter, Anneliese's face suddenly twisted into a demonic expression. Her body stiffened, almost as if she had entered a catatonic state. Anna, understandably alarmed, turned to Peter for an explanation. His response was chilling. "It's the demons. She's under possession." Unsure of what to do, Peter and Anna prayed with Anneliese for an hour and a half until the episode passed. After this terrifying event, it became clear that Anneliese could no longer stay alone at school. Peter and Anna contacted her parents, who promptly arranged to move her back to Klingenberg. Although Anneliese's appetite returned, her other problems persisted and even worsened rapidly. During a phone call between Father Alt and Anneliese's mother, the conversation was frequently interrupted by Anneliese's horrifying screams, indicating the severity of her condition. In her room, Anneliese's behavior escalated, with her screaming obscenities and behaving abhorrently. Father Alt sought assistance from another priest, Father Roth, who was closer to Anneliese. When Father Roth contacted Anneliese's family to arrange a meeting, he was surprised when her mother told him that Anneliese had predicted his call, indicating a possible connection to the demonic. A week later, Father Roth arrived at the house where he could hear Anneliese's screams from her room. A foul stench, reminiscent of burning dung and sulfur, permeated the air. Despite searching every room and outside, Father Roth couldn't find the source of the smell. Mrs. Michel mentioned that Anneliese had been in the living room just before Father Roth's arrival. To escape the smell, they continued their conversation outside. Father Roth was briefed by the family about Anneliese's violent outbursts and bizarre behavior, and they pleaded with him to pray over her. Reluctantly, he ascended the stairs to Anneliese's room, noticing the unusual number of dead bugs lining the hallway. Upon entering, Anneliese unleashed a torrent of curses and screamed at him, warning him not to remove the crucifix from his pocket, a fact he hadn't shared with anyone. Then she approached him, her eyes blackening, and uttered, "Oh, priest, you may try," before collapsing into a catatonic state. Shaken by the encounter, Father Roth quickly arranged a meeting with Father Alt to discuss the alarming events. They met 2 days later, where Father Roth expressed his belief without a doubt that Anneliese was tormented by demons. Together, they resolved to seek formal permission to commence the exorcism process. During the agonizing wait for final approval, the following year unfolded with a series of horrifying events for Anneliese's family, Peter, and the priests. After Father Roth's initial visit, Anneliese became increasingly restless, sleeping only 1 or 2 hours a night at most. She would crawl on all fours throughout the house, barking and screaming like an animal. Sometimes she appeared to be forcefully moved by an unseen presence. Despite injuring her knees during constant prayers, she continued to kneel and stand, causing them to become swollen and ulcerated. Amidst the chaos, Anneliese's constant screams filled the air, echoing through the walls day and night like waves crashing against a rocky shore. She trembled and twitched uncontrollably, sometimes becoming rigid and catatonic, needing to be moved back to her bed by Peter and her family. Despite weighing no more than 100 pounds at this point, she displayed superhuman strength. Peter witnessed her crush an apple with one frail hand and toss her sister Rosvita across the room like a rag doll. To prevent her from injuring herself, her mother surrounded her with pillows as she began to smash her face into walls and floors. As Anneliese's behavior spiraled further out of control, she developed a disturbing appetite for insects, consuming roaches, flies, and spiders. Additionally, she started chewing on coal and rocks, resulting in several broken teeth. Amidst the turmoil, the Michel family began to encounter inexplicable paranormal phenomena themselves. Swarms of flies appeared and disappeared randomly throughout their home, even in the dead of winter. They also began to see shadowy figures darting around their house, causing deep fear. As Anneliese's behavior worsened, her family and Peter took turns caring for her around the clock to prevent her from harming herself further. Joseph realized they couldn't continue like this and reached out to Father Alt for help. Father Alt, after consulting with church authorities, suggested admitting Anneliese to a psychiatric hospital for evaluation. However, after hearing Joseph's desperate plea and the alarming details of Anneliese's condition, Father Rodvik agreed to visit her. When he entered Michel's house, Joseph introduced him to Anneliese, who had become increasingly violent towards herself and her family. Seated beside her, Father Rodvik asked, "What is your name?" In a low, altered voice that didn't sound like her own, she replied, "Judas." Over the next few hours, they conversed as Anneliese shifted between her normal self and this other presence, with no memory of the latter. Near the end of their discussion, she suddenly slapped Father Rodvik and then calmly walked to the piano, playing it as if nothing had happened. Father Rodvik assured the family of his support and belief that Anneliese was possessed, committing to take action. After much discussion, the church agreed to proceed with an exorcism. Father Rintz, an experienced exorcist, arrived at the Michel residence on a cold, rainy day. After briefing the family, he entered Anneliese's room, accompanied by Joseph, Peter, and a volunteer from their congregation. A volunteer from their congregation, eager to assist, joined them. Initially, there was silence in Anneliese's room. The demons, or Anneliese herself, remained unresponsive to Father Renz. However, as he began the ritual and sprinkled holy water on her, she started shaking and screaming. She attempted to bite and attack the men restraining her, even lunging at Father Renz himself. It took all 4 men to restrain her. Details of what occurred during the exorcism come from Father Renz's diary entry. He described Anneliese's voice changing to that of a man, speaking Latin, and eventually falling into a catatonic state, following a familiar pattern. Disheartened by the lack of success, Father Renz left for the night, planning to return 4 days later on September 28th. Upon his return, Father Renz brought a recorder to document the proceedings for future study within the church. These recordings provide some of the most disturbing audio ever heard, capturing the intense and harrowing nature of the exorcism. During the second exorcism, Anneliese displayed the same chaotic behavior as before, with the devil inside her responding to the priest in Latin and German. Despite some familiarity with Latin, Anneliese was not fluent enough to engage in real-time rebuttals with the priest. When asked why she was being tormented, the entity claimed she was cursed before birth by a neighbor of her mother. An investigation into this claim yielded no conclusive evidence, as the woman in question had passed away. The second exorcism lasted for hours, concluding with Anneliese uttering a haunting sentence, proclaiming damnation for all eternity, before falling back into a catatonic state. This pattern continued for months, with Anneliese undergoing a total of 67 exorcisms. She claimed to be possessed by 5 demons named Cain, Judas, Nero, Fleischmann, and Lucifer. The demons that allegedly possessed Anneliese were named Cain, Judas, Nero, Fleischmann, and Lucifer. Cain, known as the first murderer in the Bible, symbolized violence. Judas is infamous for betraying Christ. Nero, the Roman emperor notorious for torturing Christians. Fleischmann, a disgraced local priest. And Lucifer, the Prince of Darkness himself. Anneliese's physical deterioration, caused by self-inflicted injuries and sleep deprivation-induced psychosis, eventually took its toll. During their final exorcism on June 30th, Anneliese claimed to have spoken with the Virgin Mary. She said she agreed to endure the demons to prove the reality of the devil to non-believers. She then asked for absolution, which Father Renz granted. That night, Anneliese fell silent for the first time since the ordeal began. On the morning of July 1st, 1976, at around 7 a.m., Anneliese was found dead. Despite numerous exorcisms and attempts to rid Anneliese of the demons, all efforts failed. At the time of her death, she weighed only about 85 pounds, a stark contrast to her former self. How did things spiral to this point? Was it medical negligence, mental illness, or truly the work of demonic forces? After her passing, Dr. Keller conducted a post-mortem examination, revealing intriguing details. Anneliese died due to starvation, possibly exacerbated by extreme physical exertion in her final weeks. Surprisingly, her internal organs were healthy, and her brain showed no signs of epilepsy. Strangely, her skin bore no bruises, bed sores, or ulcerations. Following her death, the priests involved were arrested and charged with negligent homicide, along with Anneliese's parents. The trial sparked intense debate among the German public. The aftermath of Anneliese's death sparked intense debate, with some attributing her demise to demonic forces and others pointing fingers at the priests and her parents for negligence. The ensuing trial lasted for months, involving doctors, lawyers, witnesses, and extensive deliberation. While I have details about the trial, it's too much to cover here, warranting a separate video. The crucial outcome, however, was the verdict. After heated discussions, Anneliese's parents and the involved priests were convicted of negligent homicide. They received a sentence of 6 months in prison, later reduced to 3 years of probation, and a fine due to the case's complexity. The church faced backlash and revoked its confirmation of Anneliese's possession. Anneliese's burial was hurried, but due to reported visions and concerns about her remains, she was exhumed nearly 2 years later. However, her body showed typical decay for its age, disappointing those who hoped for miraculous preservation. Her case gained global notoriety and led the Catholic Church to reconsider its stance on exorcisms. In a strange twist, the house where Anneliese underwent exorcisms mysteriously burned down on June 6, 2013. While arson was suspected, it was never conclusively proven. Decades after her death, speculation still swirls around the events at Anneliese's home, with some locals attributing the mysterious fire to the lingering effects of what occurred there. The truth remains elusive, but her story has inspired numerous films and books, with The Exorcism of Emily Rose being the most well-known, albeit with some artistic liberties. For those seeking a detailed account, The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel by Felicitas D. Goodman offers comprehensive insights into the case. It remains a chilling and enigmatic tale. Was Anneliese truly possessed, or was her suffering a result of mental illness? Did her priests and parents aid her or inadvertently hasten her demise? Ultimately, the interpretation is left to each individual. Regardless of the cause, one thing is certain: Anneliese's torment has ended, and we can only hope that she now rests in peace. Researching this case was a lengthy process spanning weeks, but I aim to do justice to Anneliese's story and provide insights you may not have known. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Take care and stay safe. Until next time, this is Fadri from Fadri Stories, signing off.